Signore e signori, buonasera. Welcome to this virtual Casa Italiana Zerilli-Marimò at New York University event. As you know, we have partnered with N.I.C.E, New Italian Cinema Event, from the very beginning. We share a birth year at exactly 30 years ago. Viviana Del Bianco and her collaborators brought the first group of new Italian films to New York. And for the past 30 years, Casa Italiana has collaborated with N.I.C.E, New Italian Cinema Event, to bring new up-and-coming directors, authors, screenwriters, and actors to the New York audience. This year, of course, things are different, but I'm delighted to say that N.I.C.E didn't stop. And we are very happy to be once again part of the enterprise. We believe in the fact that Italian cinema is not only a great tradition, a great heritage from the past. I also like to remember every time I can that Italy is the nation with the highest number of Academy Awards for Best Foreign Language Film. That might say or not say something, but for us, it's a great accomplishment. But Italian cinema is alive. There are people who are making films now, and there are people who have something to say. Like our guest tonight, who is Carlo Sironi, who is presenting his film Sole. You're going to meet Carlo in just a few minutes. I just want to remind you that if you live in New York State, you still have time to catch Carlo Sironi's film Sole on the platform in which it is streaming free of charge, and it's brought to you again by N.I.C.E and Casa Italiana. We are making this possible. Unfortunately, the arrangement we have reached only includes New York State. But if you live in New York State, you have an IP from New York, you can still see them film if you have not seen it. For those of you who have already seen it, I hope you enjoyed it. And I'm sure you will enjoy the discussion with Carlo Sironi, the director of the film, and my colleague and friend, David Forgacs, who is the Guido and Mariuccia Zerilli-Marimò Professor of Contemporary Italian Studies at New York University. During these Zoom times, let's call them that, we don't do formal, long academic presentations. Professor Forgacs is an expert, though, of contemporary Italy, and especially history and media, cultural representations, and cinema and documentaries are some of his areas of specialty. I like to remember, since we're talking about cinema, that he wrote the ultimate book about Roberto Rossellini's film Open City, maybe the most seminal Italian film of all times. And more recently, he has curated the special box collector edition of Fellini's films that is about to be released by the Criterion Collection on the occasion of Federico Fellini's 100th anniversary. So we couldn't have picked a better person to enter in a dialogue with Carlo Sironi about his film Sole. So without further ado, please welcome to the virtual stage of Casa Italiana Zerilli-Marimò for this special 30th edition of N.I.C.E New Italian Cinema Event, Professor David Forgacs. Thank you, David.
Okay, thank you, Stefano. I hope you can all hear me. I was very happy to have been asked to do this Q&A with Carlo Sironi, because I didn't know this film and I was sent it to look at, and I really like it. I think it's actually one of the most interesting films, and both as a story and in style, that I've seen coming out of Italy in the last few years. So what I'd like to do is invite Carlo to come on, and maybe for those people who haven't yet seen the film, just give us a very brief idea of what the film is about. And then we're going to sort of drill down and ask some questions about it, about how he came to make it, and about some aspects of the film. So over to you, Carlo.
Hi, David. Thanks a lot. First of all, thanks a lot for hosting me. It's a great opportunity, and maybe it would have been nice to talk a little bit about Sole for those who has not seen the film yet. Sole, in a way, is a very, very straight and simple story. I mean, it's the story of this Lena, this 8-month pregnant Polish girl that came in Italy to sell the baby. And in Italy, surrogacy is completely forbidden. So we have a lot of loophole inside the adoption law. So there is this fake adoption that has been set. And this young guy, this young man, Hermano, has to pretend to be the father just in order to start this fake adoption. And everything is paid by his uncle and his wife. So basically it's the story of two unknown people that get to know one another and they have to pretend to be together for 2 weeks. And of course, everything doesn't go as it was supposed to be, in a way.
Okay, thank you. I'm interested to know really how you came to this particular theme, this story. Why make a film about surrogacy and fostering? Why have this central character who's come from Poland to Italy and have her paired up with this man who is in some ways a very blank character? He's a fascinating character because he seems to be emotionally unexpressive. And as the film develops, we see there's a lot of stuff going on inside him. So a very unusual couple. But how did you come to develop this story, give it this setting? I think it's set in somewhere, is it Nettuno? Somewhere on the coast south?
Yeah, it's exactly Nettuno. It's a small town 1 hour from Rome. But actually the idea, the concept came in a way in an organic process, because I was researching for a short film, the last short film that I made, that in a way it's about motherhood, but from a completely different angle. And I was researching with this NGO that works a lot with migration from Eastern Europe, like prostitution on the street, and a lot of stuff, similar stuff. So we bumped into this hypothesis of this kind of fake adoption. And from the very beginning, when I read the hypothesis, I read all the material that they have, I thought that it was interesting to do this movie, not from the point of view of the couple that it's so desperate to buy a newborn, not from the point of view of a young woman that is willing to sell her baby, but from the point of view of someone that has to pretend to be the father, that gets some money to pretend to be a father, to pretend to be what it's not. I think the movie really, for me, started when me and the screenwriter, Giulia Morigi, we said, okay, this is the right angle to start the story, because this is very blank, as you said, and in a way objective. It gives you the tools to look at the story from a point of view that it's not involved. What I like what I like in cinema, that sometimes it goes beyond these mechanical things. The character has a goal, he reached the goal or he doesn't reach the goal. I love to, when I thought about the movie, I said, okay, I love to do a movie when my character has no goal at all. He has no interest at all, that everything goes well. Is completely detached. He just gets some money to pretend that he's a father, that it's not something, it's not like nuts. It's something, but he doesn't care. So I think the movie for us started in that moment, because it was, as I said, a blank angle, because surrogacy is a very complex things. So I think that it was interesting to don't be too emotional. That the point of view wasn't too emotional, at least at the beginning.
Yeah. Can I just come in with just a point about that, a question as well? I think one of the things that's very striking about this film, it certainly struck me, even within the first 10 minutes, is this restraint, the restraint of the style, the fact you don't have characters who are emotionally expressive. In fact, they seem the opposite. It's very hard to read their emotion. So the main young man, Claudio Segaluscio, the actor who plays Ermanno, and the young woman who plays Lena, Sandra Jimalska, Polish actress, are remarkably blank, almost deadpan in their expressions. And that's such a bold thing to do, I think, in a film, because audiences often like characters to be warm, to be what they call relatable, to have some kind of emotional contact with them. And you're doing something really in the opposite direction. And I think what happens is the audience has to rely a lot on facial expression, on the kind of tension between characters, even the physical space between them on the screen. So it reminds me, if I can just say this, I mean, it reminds me of people like Bresson, or Antonioni, really much more than a lot of the kind of mainstream contemporary Italian cinema. It's almost as if you're drawing on that tradition of using, the face, the body, rather than dialogue to convey what's going on. And not having, if you like, psychology, but just to sort of trying to read what may be going on under the surface of these characters' faces, which is really so interesting. Anyway, so having said that, that's for me.
I totally agree with what you said, because in a way, first of all, I thought that there is this cliche in cinema that, like, when there are two people that they don't know one another, they tend to talk about themselves. There is the tendency to talk about themselves, to give information, and it's not what happened not in real life, but even it's not interesting sometimes to be, to have a sort of guide to know where the people is going. Because at the end, my two characters, they don't have any interest to share anything with the other at the beginning. So I think that, and it's related to the concept of the movie. The concept is like there is something that there are some sparkle that in life's just, that gives fire to life, but we don't know when the sparks will arrive, when it came from. So I think that at the beginning was interesting to show that they don't care one another. They don't care for one another. And another important thing is related to loneliness, no? Because I think that so much in cinema, loneliness is depicted like a concept, like a metaphor. There is one frame, one image, and we said that the character is lonely, but loneliness, it's real concrete things. It's real things. I think it's a feeling that we can almost touch. No, so I think that at the beginning could have been interesting to show to the audience what was the loneliness, the true loneliness of the two characters, and then maybe to bump into the empathy with the character in an unexpected moment. This was most of all the idea that I had in terms of the pace of the movie, of the development. When you mentioned Bresson, I think it's like it's sometimes we bump into some painter, writer, director, artist that they really change in a way our perception of life. Bresson was mine. So I was so afraid because I love his concept of model and not of actor, no? Of go beyond the psychology, use the automatization of life to give life on the screen. But I was so much a fan that I was afraid to follow too much his great, great invention. So in a way, I try to do it, but very, very, not too much, because I think there are some masters that if you look at them too much, it's going to be a damage for the movie, no? So I think that in some way, I try to use his concept of model for the movie, but for example, I use it maybe more for him and less for Lena.
Yeah. Can I just come in here on that, because one thing I think is interesting hearing you talking about that is the this thing about not having these characters who seem cold. Is the fact you put in another couple into the story. In some ways, the couple which works as a foil to them, which is the couple of is he Fausto? I can't remember the name.
Fabio and Bianca.
Fabio and Bianca. played by Bruno Buzzi and Barbara Ronchi. And they act in a very different way. So in a way, you put into the story these two characters who are more doing a more conventional kind of acting. And I think the contrast between Sandra and Bianca is particularly interesting because the audience immediately sees a more kind of conventional maternal behavior coming from Bianca. She smiles. She's obviously very excited about this baby that's going to be born. When the baby's born, she holds her. The baby's called Sole. She calls her Amore, and see Sandra there in the background looking unemotional. But what you learn really is that Sandra has, and I think the screenplay is very clever in doing this. You withhold the information about these characters until a certain point in the film. So we learn from Sandra in her first interview, her first meeting with the obstetrician, that she has never met her biological parents. She never knew them. We learn about Ermanno, that his father died when he was young, that he from suicide. The uncle mentions that to him. But then there's this scene when he's in the car where he remembers as a child his father, and he has a photograph of the father in the car. So you plant these little clues into the story, into the screenplay, which let the audience know that these people have got a very damaged past. They had damaged childhoods, and they're behaving in this way because of that. And I think that's another kind of withholding. You don't give that information at the start. It doesn't come out in any of their dialogues. It comes out in these little clues. So anyway, I just wanted to say one of the things I think works very well in the film is that contrast between the two more conventionally acting characters who have more relatable emotions. Well, certainly Bianca, perhaps not so much Fabio, and these two more deadpan figures.
I agree. I mean, it's done on purpose. But even before the real couple, let's call them in this way, Fabio and Bianca, they have to show their emotion to other people because they want that everyone think that they are a good parent. And for me, I mean, and even the movie, I would like that the movie let you with the question that maybe the baby would have been better with Fabio and Bianca and not with Ermanno and Lena. And we, of course, we support Ermanno and Lena. We love Ermanno and Lena. It's right. But there is this question inside. But beside that, I think there is another small level. It's funny that in this movie, all the male are non-professional actors. I mean, Ermanno, Fabio, even Giordano, and all the women are professional actors. Because I really intended that, I mean, I love when there is a sort of like different level in acting in terms of preparation, not in terms of performance. Because I thought that the women in my movie were more sure of what they think than the man, and it was important to me for me to search this like pureness, this like a naivety that non-professional actor has. So in a way, there is even this contrast, because at the end, the most important things of the movie was the cast for me. I mean, it was a really character-driven movie, as in the US you used to say, and it's true. And the most important choice for me was to find two interesting human beings to give life to Ermanno and Lena. So I think and even their choice would have shaped the language, the visual language of the movie.
Right. Okay. Thank you. What I'm going to do now is just share my screen, because I want just to put some shots up here of the film. Just to sort of show what we're talking about. This is Lena, your Polish actress, Sandra. There she is, staring at camera. There's this very touching scene where she's trying on a maternity dress. Ermanno is kind of waiting outside, and then she kind of pops up and says, "Do you like the dress?" And there's a kind of beginnings of a sort of a warmth, the beginning of a love, really, I think, beginning between these two characters. And then, you have these bold stylistic choices, like the first scene at the obstetricians, where you have a long take. I think it's over 2 minutes of them just facing the camera. It doesn't go into close-ups. It just stays with this setup.
It's almost 5 minutes. It's not a league, but it's longer.
In cinema, it's a very long take. I mean, just to remind people watching this, that's very unusual to do that. And these people are actually having to act in real time, like in a stage play, and with this dialogue. And they're both kind of looking uncomfortable. The answers they give to the obstetrician are very minimalist, and you don't see the obstetrician. He's off camera, so we just see their reactions to his questions. And then other shots like this at a distance where they're framed in this architectural feature. They're against the sea. I assume this is in Nettuno as well, isn't it? By the seafront, as they eat their sandwiches. Or these rather spare and kind of antiseptic spaces of the hospital, where he's rather alienated. He doesn't really belong there. It's an uncomfortable space for him. So, a lot of attention to architecture, space, framing. I should mention here the cinematography is very striking. Gergely Pohánok is a Hungarian cinematographer who'd done a lot of work in Italian cinema.
He's a great fan.
Yeah, extraordinarily good the way this is filmed. So, and at the end you have these shots in the dark where he goes to his favorite haunt, the slot machine, which he's taken over. She's now very depressed, and there's this incredibly moving last shot where they just hold each other. She tries to take the money for him because she wants to go on playing, and he says no. He's now becoming the kind of authority figure. And then that's the movie plays out on that last shot. These features really of style, the cinematography. I should also mention the music, which I really found very, very powerful, by a young Polish composer, which is really kind of computer-generated music, I think, largely, although there's some violin and things in it. You obviously had a lot of attention to style, both the way the film looked and the way it sounded. And perhaps can I just ask you a little bit about those choices of shooting in a certain way?
Absolutely.
I just mentioned in a very unusual thing, this is probably for film nerds, but it's very striking to me. You shot it in 4:3 in Academy ratio, which is basically a more kind of the old ratio that films used to be.
The old Academy. I mean, they still call it Academy because it was the format that every movie was the normal format until the end of the 50s, I think. No, just in the 60s.
But hardly anybody uses it anymore, and people shoot in 16:9. So you did something very unusual to do that. Anyway, could you talk a little bit about these style choices? And I think we should open up to the questions from the audience.
No, the format was an idea for the beginning because, as I said, is a character-driven movie, and 90% of the movie is indoor. So there is no better format to frame character. I think that the idea of CinemaScope or like 69 has become like the sort of like, it has become normal now, but I mean, you have to use CinemaScope for a reason, at least for me. This is my humble opinion. I mean, and sometimes in cinema, they use CinemaScope for movies that are like in a house with 3 characters. And for me, it doesn't have any, and I don't see any reason for that. So I love the format because in a way it leaves me even more space because it's anamorphic. There is the anamorphic. You can use the lens as anamorphic, even if they are not anamorphic. So you have much more space. And it was linked to the idea to make it very, very simple. I mean, to use some tools from the classic cinema, like shot and reverse shot, the 2 people shot, something very simple. Maybe now it seems unusual, but I looked a lot at a kind of cinema that I really love a lot. It's the Japanese cinema of the 50s. Mizoguchi, Kenji Mizoguchi, Mikio Naruse, most of all, is one of my favorite director of all time. And there are these little mellow, wonderfully written, wonderfully framed, very simple, and everything is like linked to the character and to the space, and not to the concept of framing. So I think to use some tools from the 50s could have been interesting because for the movie. And so another things that it really changed in a way the way I intended the movie was the discovery of Sandra Zmarska, of the main actress, because in a way I searched for her before, because of course I was searching for a professional actress that didn't speak Italian, so I have to give them time to learn Italian, or at least the lines of the script. So I was searching all over Europe, because during my research there were like 3, 4, 5 Eastern Europe countries more involved in that kind of like fake adoption. So when I finally met Sandra, and I had the chance to have like a casting with her, a long casting, of course, because I was in Warsaw. Her proposition of the character was really striking me, because this proposition of that is very childish, very light, almost ghostly as a presence. I really like it. So this tenderness that Sandra was giving to the movie was in my intention, but she was giving me something more. So even in the framing, even in the visual, I had the tendency to try to make the movie is a little bit more tender, more sweeter in the tone, in the color, in the choice of everything, because Sandra was there supporting that kind of like tenderness, no?
Right. Thank you. Great. I'm just realizing I think we've had probably only about 15 minutes to go. So I would like to ask people attending to send in some questions now for you. They have to do it on the Q&A tab. There is actually one already there from Lilia Pino-Bluin, I'm reading, where she is actually asking about how you work with your cinematographer, how you work with Gergely, and particularly to create certain color effects. She said, how did you work to create that desaturated color palette with so much desaturated teal and some pink every now and then? So she was very struck by both by the color and by the minimalist compositions of the shots. So perhaps you could say a little bit more about that, and then we can while people are writing some other questions.
I was working with Gergely for the first time because I did my short film with another cinematographer, and I have the tendency of, I don't like improvisation. I cannot improvise. So before I even have the location, I do a sort of shot list, a list of shots that I think that the movie could have been interesting. Then I change the list of shots with the relocation, and then I give it to the cinematographer. It's a very detailed list of lens, description of the shot. He gives me notebooks, and we have a sort of like new shot list. So this was the way we work, and I love the way Gergely light the movie. I mean, it's very naturalistic but very strong, because we think that it was interesting to give a real tone to the movie that wasn't really realistic. I mean, the movie is full of like azure, of blue, as you said, and even of pink at a certain point of the movie. And so at a certain moment, me and Gergely said to the costume designer, to the art director, look, all the movie has to be blue, because we think that was really giving something to the movie. So this is what happened. We decided all the color together. I mean, it was involved, of course, in all the choice with every costume. We do a test lens. But most of all, one thing that I think was really crucial to have that result was the choice of the lens, because we use a very, very old series of lens. It's the Cook series 2 and 3. the Cook series is known for its softness, no? But these lenses are really, really old. I mean, we are talking about lenses from the 50s, from the 60s, and they have this tendency of have a natural vignette that it was already there, and to have the black that are almost gray. So in a way, we didn't want to create a movie, an image that was very contrasted. So I think that even the choice of the lens that Gergely suggested to me was crucial. Yeah.
Okay, good. There are some questions here about the actors. Actually, a group of questions. Cherry Pastel and Miriam Rabban both ask you, are they professional actors? I think you answered that in relation to the women are and the men are not. But they say, where did you find these non-professional actors? So could you maybe quickly talking perhaps about Ermanno character? How did you find him?
Actually, I was searching Claudio. I was searching Ermanno. At the beginning, we saw some actors, but I was sure because on a hand, I didn't have a super precise idea of the character of Lena, but I had a super precise idea of the character of Ermanno, the features, the voice, how it has to be. So we searched in young actors from theater, but it didn't match. So we went to gym and to high school. And we find Claudio in a high school. It was exactly as I imagined. He wasn't even 18 at the time. So we start to rehearse. It was great. And I say to him, look, I'm really interested in you, but we have to do a sort of lab together, sort of 3-4 months working, not all day, of course, but during the preparation, I was rehearsing with him all the time. Then Sandra came on board. And the funny things about them that I really love is that, of course, Sandra learns Italian. I mean, the Italian lines of the movie, but she doesn't speak Italian. I direct her in English, of course, and Claudio doesn't speak a word of English. At the time, it didn't speak really a word. So the two of them during rehearsal, even during the shooting, they couldn't talk at all. And I love that. Of course, it was an obstacle because sometimes I have to translate and stuff like that. But it wasn't possible for them to talk. And about Bruno is the who plays Fabio. Bruno is a first ID that I know from when I was working as a video assist. I know from before, and he has this beautiful voice. This, you can really believe that he came. Seen something in his life. So I think it was perfect. I knew I think about him from the very beginning.
Good. Thank you. There are some also more questions coming up here about the actors and the characters. One about the characters. Rossella asks, where is Ermanno's mother and why did you choose to have Ermanno's dad do what he did? So could you maybe say this is? It
was strange because in a movie about motherhood, about mothers, Ermanno has no mothers. Has no mother, no. I mean, she has disappeared. Of course, she's not dead. She has left him probably when he was very young. But no one mentioned the mother. Not him. Not his uncle. There is no mother. We think that the movie was full of too many mothers' point of view, and to have another clue about another mother would have made too Freudian in a way. So we decide to skip the information. We think it wasn't interesting. So probably she has left him when he was very, very young.
Right. Can I ask just a question about this? Because I think there was a screenwriting partnership here. I gathered from the credits, and so you wrote the screenplay in collaboration with 2 other people. Is that right? One of whom was a woman. But I don't remember her name. Perhaps you can.
Julia. It's Julia Morigi.
Okay, because I think obviously in a film that is so much about this, the pregnancy, motherhood, obviously the fact that, and you have a male director, the input by Giulia presumably was quite important in the way the story developed.
No, it is, and it was ever like this. I mean, Giulia is my partner in crime. She writes all the short film with me. I know her since I was 10 years old. We grew up together. So Giulia, for me, is more than a screenwriter. She saw all the casting. She was on set with us. I mean, for me, it's like all the time I was journeying to her, and we were like communicating how it was going. For me, it was like a sort of script, first idea, everything. So, and an editor in a way. So, absolutely, Giulia brings a lot of his.
One thing we haven't said, and you haven't kind of disclosed yet, and maybe worth saying, particularly for people who haven't seen the film. But one of the things that I was surprised by is this film didn't quite develop as one might have thought it was going to develop. You could have think, it could have become quite sugary. This woman, at some stage in her pregnancy or when the baby's born, bonds with the baby, decides she wants to be the mother. She's not going to give the baby up to the to be fostered. And she'll fall in love with this baby, and the two couple will fall in love, and they'll be a happy couple, or a happy couple of parents. They'll both discover their kind of parental mission, and that is not what happens in the film. Really, it kind of happens in a way, but it happens in a very muted way, quite ambivalent in a way, because even after the baby's born, she says, "No, I want to go off and use this money and have my own life and go to Germany." I think, so you keep the thing very on the edge of being, it doesn't quite develop into the film it could have done, I think, which I think is very interesting. Another example of your restraint here. You're more interested in seeing what happens to these two people in that situation rather than telling a kind of, happy ending narrative about them becoming parents.
No, absolutely. I mean, our idea was that at the beginning you were thinking that maybe it was supposed to be another movie, a very cruel movie about the traffic of newborn, and it's not, because at the end, in the middle, you are trapped in this house with these two, teenagers that are forced to live together. And then, of course, the movie is not about that. For me, it's really a love story. I mean, a movie about attraction, about what does it mean to fall in love in an unexpected way, and to don't have the tools to admit to yourself and to admit it to your partner at the very beginning. So a love story, and it's a story about reborning in a way, because even the fact that they can admit to themselves that they want to take care of someone else, it's a so big change for them that to believe in the proper family portrait, Ermanno, Lena, and the baby running away, was not the point. And another important thing that for me is crucial is that in the last scene, we see the other side of the coin for Lena. We see all the pain that she was trying to hide to the character, and maybe the audience was trying to hide it to the others, and maybe Ermanno was seeing. But I mean, if you have decided for 9 months to keep your baby and to sell it, then to make a U-turn and change everything would have been so painful that you can't stand it. So this is another important thing for me. She has decided a very difficult choice for herself, but it's her choice on herself, and it has to be until the end. So all this fact together, both to the idea that we tried during screenwriting to believe or try to take the path of Ermanno and Lena escaping with the baby. Well, we didn't believe in that. So
great. We're going to have to end soon. There are, I think I picked up all the questions that were there. There were some that are comments, appreciation of the film. But I wanted to ask before we end just about the kind of the fate of this film in distribution. It came out in 2019 in Italy. Is that right? So it came out before.
The movie was in Venice in 2019 in Orizzonti, in competition in Orizzonti, then went to Toronto, and then it was released in October in 2019 in Italy. Then it was sold in quite a lot of territory for this small movie, included the US, and it was supposed to be released in the US. So far, it has been released in Italy, in France in September 2020, and it's in Spain right now. All the other territories like Canada, US, South America, of course, everything is like suspended. We don't know when it will be released. I hope that it will be released in cinema, because for me it's a movie that really has every movie is better in a big theater in the dark, a big screen in the dark. But there are some movies that I think that gain a little extra more, because you really need to get lost. So I hope it will be released in the US in 2021.
I think one thing we can say about it, I think it's obviously this has happened to a lot of films with the pandemic, the releasing strategies had to change, but this film is not going to date. So even if it's delayed by a year, it should, I think, come out, and I hope it does in cinemas and movie theaters, and I hope it makes a big impact, because I think it's really a very extraordinary film.
Oh, thank you. No, I hope so. The movie has a small budget, so it doesn't have to meet an enormous audience. It's a small movie, but I think it's important that it's been seen in a theater. The truth that every director preferred that. I think every director preferred that the movie are in the theater. So.
Anyway, but thanks to the N.I.C.E Festival, thanks to venues like this,
thanks a lot. No, it was a great opportunity, and thanks a lot to N.I.C.E. Thanks a lot, David. Thanks a lot, Stefano. Thanks a lot, Casa, Italiana, Zerilli-Marimò. It was a great time.
Good. Thank you, Carlo. It's been great talking to you. Thanks everybody for tuning in, listening, and we'll switch off now. Okay.
Absolutely. Bye.
Bye.